So when did Ice Cube become the mascot?
Last year.
Right when you called him Ice Stray last year, I think.
I'm surprised because he's a man of his. He's like a multi-millionaire, and he acts like the team's lapdog.
Yeah, well, he wants attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's look, Plaschke, we can't really talk ourselves here. We're sitting here down the third base line. We haven't even finished writing yet, and here we are.
Hello and welcome back to Dodgers Debate, a very special episode of Dodgers Debate because you can either be watching us here at Dodger Stadium or, for the first time, listening to us in podcast form. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, along with our thrilled to be at opening day columnists, Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernández. Guys, say hello to the podcast universe.
You should be thrilled to not have to see us and actually look at us. It's been a long day, and Potsy set us up so far from the press box. It's a mile to get back to the press box. I'm exhausted. The Dodgers are exhausted. But you know what? They're not going to lose this year. 162-0. I'm calling it 162-0.
Okay, so the Dodgers are losing tomorrow, Dylan.
God, we're so far away.
I mean, but that's the thing, though, right? Is like this game today. I mean, I ran into Dave Roberts on the field before the game, when he was going out to, for batting practice. And I told him that I thought they were going to lose, and he kind of was like,
"It's unbelievable."
But this is the type of game, like, you could excuse a team, right? I mean, you arguably have the best pitcher in baseball pitching opposite them, and they still kind of found a way to win. And I think this is what we've kind of been talking about, right? Is that this team has kind of multiple avenues to victory, and a couple big swings there.
Yeah, well, because today, none of the avenues were perfect even. Blake Snell made his Dodger debut, had a 1-2-3 first inning, and had anything but.
He was so frustrating. It was horrible watching him. It wasn't any fun at all.
Well,
he's out there.
Sorry. Hey, Blake is great. I love him.
But that's part of the Blake Snell experience, right? That's something that from pitching against the Dodgers a lot over the years, that's often how it looks. It's something that the Dodgers think, there's another level in there where he can be more efficient, more consistent. I think today, he just didn't have his curveball slider working, which put him in some bad counts. He couldn't get out of a couple jams, through the wild pitch. So it was good, but not great. The offense was not great early. Tommy Edman was the only guy who did anything for the first 4 innings. But then the one time they get an opportunity, Teoscar Hernández, batting in the 3 spot, hits a 3-run homer. And even the bullpen, wasn't great, but they did enough to get the win. Shohei Ohtani had a big home run late. And yeah, like you said, Dylan, it's just an example of this is a team that with the depth that they have, all the different options they have, you can have a game where Freddie Freeman didn't look great and Mookie Betts is playing 15 pounds underweight right now. And yet they still did, enough to be able to win this game, get off to a 3-0 start to the season, and begin this title defense, even with a lot of pomp and circumstance around tonight. And obviously the games in Japan, with 3 important wins, all of them, again, being probably not their best performances, but enough to win.
I thought it was so cool. The Kirk Gibson moment was the coolest part of the day. Him coming down before the game. I don't think some of the fans knew who he was. The fans didn't cheer him the way they cheered Freddie. I was really unnerved by that.
Well, they kind of, that whole thing was a surprise as part of, this whole pregame ceremony. And he kind of just, ran right out onto the field, straight to the mound, then had the nice moment with Freddie. But yeah, it was a cool thing. Obviously, really the theme of today was celebrating 2024. The Dodgers wore their gold jerseys. They raised a banner in the outfield, put a plaque on the right field wall.
So when did Ice Cube become the mascot?
Last year. Right when you called him Ice Stray last year, I think.
I'm surprised because he's a man of his. He's like a multi-millionaire, and he acts like the team's lapdog.
Yeah, well, he wants attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's look, Plaschke, we can't really talk ourselves here. We're sitting here down the third base line. We haven't even finished writing yet, and here we are.
You're true. That's so good.
Hey, people, we need attention.
But I'm surprised. He's like their mascot.
Well, I'll give you a softer take on this. I think it's a good example of the cultural relevance that this team has in LA right now, where someone like Ice Cube, wants to be part of it, wants to do the concert during the World Series, wants to be out there during the parade last year, wants to drive his Chevy Bel Air around the morning track. I think,
and like the Dodgers, right? Didn't Ice Cube have a thing where he met with Trump, or was going to meet with Trump, and got it. He tried to have his cake and eat it too, just like the Dodgers are now.
I'm going to give you your lane here, Dylan. Go ahead. Drive down it.
Let's just say that, when I asked Dan Caston about it, he got a little Trumpian there. Started screaming. Right what you want, he yelled at me.
But did the players vote for it?
It didn't really sound like a formal thing.
Dave Roberts explicitly said that the White House visit, what we're talking about, was not a formal conversation the team had. It is something that, Dave Roberts went from in 2019 saying he probably wouldn't go to the Trump White House to saying, well, I'm going to go now. I respect the office. Kike Hernandez said he's going to go. Mookie Betts is undecided, but
Ohtani said he would.
He shut it down. Oh, did he get asked that?
He got asked that by the Japanese media. He says he's going.
Your take on all this?
Look, I just think, right? Ohtani's the one that has to be worried here because, in 20 years, you talk about nobody remembering Gibson. The reality is time's going to go by. Most of these guys are going to kind of fade into nothingness, right? People will forget about him. Ohtani's the one guy that people are going to remember. And there's going to be a picture out there with Shohei Ohtani and Donald Trump. And as unfavorably as Trump is viewed right now, I have a feeling it's going to look worse 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah, but isn't the White House bigger than one man?
It's not now. There is no government anymore. He's completely dismantled everything. Are you watching the news? Going back to Ice Cube and the city, because that is a part of it, right? Hip hop is a part of this city, right? And it's kind of tapping into, I do think, a certain part of the culture here, right? And I'm guessing Jack and Plaschke, you guys have probably heard from fans that are really disappointed by this, right? And
there was a wide range of reactions.
Yes, because this city does have, right? That's what this city is, right? Whether you like it or not, this is what this city is. And this team, right? There is, I do think, a kind of an unwritten social contract between professional teams and the cities in which they play, right? Because people do ultimately come out here, right? The city provides, a shuttle, right, that the city pays for from Union Station to here. There's, right, and the fans support it because they're representing the city. And in this case, they're kind of not, right? They're not. They're flat out, they're not. But I do think there's...
Very good point.
They're hoping this is going to blow over, and that ultimately, that if they win, everything's going to be fine. And I do think for that, in their fairness to them, that is probably true. Yeah, my guess is that every game here is going to be sold out this year.
And I think there's probably a calculation being made that not going might have made a bigger scene, right or wrong, than if you just go, if guys don't want to go individually.
Why are they going?
I think that they don't want to destroy. I think it's a short term. To me, when I look at it, it's short-sighted, right? Because to me, the week after, they're going to be coming back here and they're going to celebrate Jackie Robinson Day, right? And it's easy for us now, right, after all this time has passed, to say oh, yeah, of course I would have integrated baseball. But that's not true, right? I think with a lot of people, that takes guts to do. And, right, I think back then, I was reading, during the game, I was reading about some of the arguments that were being used to not integrate baseball, right? There were people were feigning, concern over what's going to happen to the Negro Leagues, right? As if people actually care. They were, just like right now, how there are disingenuous arguments being made right now. There were disingenuous arguments being made back then, right? Nobody was going to just kind of admit, oh yeah, I am just racist, right? And so, and despite that, the Dodgers went through and kind of did this thing, right? Again, it was not easy. It was hard. That's why we honor Jackie Robinson. And, again, for them to kind of go to that, right? They're going to kind of wrap themselves in the flag of Jackie Robinson and kind of, right, celebrate kind of the heroism of it all. And, right, we're more than a baseball team, which is kind of the implied message of this thing. Now they are just another team, right? And that to me is kind of the hypocrisy of this thing. It's just, and look, economically it is different, right? This is now, right, it's gone from probably what used to be $1 million business to now $1 billion business. There's a lot more money at stake. But it does still kind of rub me wrong that they're going to kind of, right, drag out Jackie's ghost out here and kind of pretend to be something that they're not.
I ask, if Jackie Robinson were allowed today, would he go to the White House?
No way. No.
I don't know.
I don't think it's the same thing as when Jackie Robinson was playing in front of hostile, racist crowds, right? Because back then it was still kind of okay, you know what? I have to make this point that I belong here. We belong here, right? We should be allowed to play here. you don't really gain anything by going to the White House. This is just a photo op, right? And it's going to help Trump, frankly, probably more than it's going to help the Dodgers. You know, I do think the Dodgers, again, they're just kind of afraid of the backlash. I mean, we saw this a couple of years ago with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, right? And look, here's the thing about this is that I'm not blaming the players on this because I just don't think, look, today they had to try to hit Scooble. I'm sure guys couldn't sleep for like a couple days, right? That's kind of a nightmare matchup. You know, but I do think
because of Scooble or because of the
because well, both things, right? Yeah, but I do think that the adults in the room, it's kind of on them to, right, do what's right by the legacy of this franchise. And you know, and Plasch, we were around, right, whenever that was, 10, 15 years ago, when they started the Pride Night. There was resistance in the clubhouse, and right,
very prominent players told me they didn't want to have Pride Night.
And upper management put their foot down and like, no, right is right, and we're going to go by this, right? And they did, and I think that was a great thing to do. And I just think that this kind of calls for the same thing, even though there might be, again, some short-term pain because of this. I just think, again, and you know, and to me, like, again, the guy that's like probably has the most at stake, and he has no idea just because he comes from another country, is Ohtani. There's going to be this picture now of him and Trump.
Sounds like you're advocating for a very strategic placement of Ohtani when they go and do.
Well, yeah, well, again, but like politics isn't, you know, politics. The way people treat politics in Japan is like different, though, right? People that are into politics are kind of considered weird over there. You know, teams that win don't go visit the prime minister or anything. The prime minister might show up to throw an occasional first pitch somewhere, but you know, unless you kind of receive one of these like national like citizen awards, you know, you're not going to interact with politicians. So I'm not really sure he's quite aware of like the dynamic here, and who's going to tell him otherwise?
Well, I think Dylan's got a lot of fodder for his column now for tomorrow, which I can't wait to read. Before we get out of here, I mean, I think to me one of the interesting parts about this first week of the season has been, like we talked about, all of the other things happening around being the World Series champions, opening in Japan, having this White House thing, you know, that's become a story this week. What have you just made of how the team has looked on the field amid all that? Are you surprised?
I'm stunned. They have no hangover. They have no effects. They're playing as well as ever. I mean, Taylor has a big hit today, just like he did last year. It's like they're a 500 team, trying to fight for their lives. It's amazing to me the level of distraction that they could knock out and play above that. It's amazing.
I kind of wonder if all that isn't in play, right? That probably they maybe they still are jet lagged. Maybe they still, right? Maybe, again, they had a long, right, shorter off season. Maybe they have like a hangover.
So you think this is the bad Dodgers?
Yeah, like maybe it's that. Maybe they're just that good.
Maybe they are going to go one season.
Maybe they really are just that good. And to me, right, I'm really curious about, as we kind of look ahead here, the next 2 days. You know, Yamamoto's clearly looked different, right?
However, we know who's pitching for the Tigers tomorrow.
The ace.
Oh, that's it. All right, your guy against my guy. I mean, my guy's already a Cy Young contender. I read that in the LA Times somewhere.
He's referencing his own stories now.
like I was random.
This genius.
Cy Young candidate, and then we got Roki Sasaki, right? He was out there throwing a bullpen today.
Shotgun Roki.
That one is going to be, yeah. I mean, look, I think Yamamoto's going to pitch well. You know, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I'm really fascinated again with Sasaki. I think this can go in any which direction, similar to how any of his pitches could go in any which direction. But I'm also interested in just kind of seeing him kind of like in this like LA crowd, right? You know, obviously, when word kind of got out that he was kind of trying to leave Japan early, I do think there was a bit of a backlash over there. Obviously, he's not going to have to deal with any of that here. And I just think the type of athlete he is, the type, right, just everything from the delivery to just kind of the high octane stuff to the fact that he strikes out a lot of guys. So I think he's going to win over the crowd easily.
So you're expecting less than 5 walks is what you're saying.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be, like we said last time, it's going to be exciting either way, right? He's going to put on a show.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, give me 2 things before we get out of here. Dodgers win total in the regular season, where the Dodgers finish the year at the end of the postseason.
I think they do load management, and I think they win about 103 games. Only because they're waiting for October. They'll pull everybody back.
This team, do they do that?
Yeah. Yes.
103? Are they going to win the World Series?
Oh, yeah.
You want to give me a more exciting answer?
121.
Okay, that's more exciting. Wait, you wrote 100.
I don't want to. Well, I said they would win.
It's going to be.
I mean, if you win 121 games, you've also won 120. Yeah, 120, 121 wins, and they're going to win the World Series.
All right, I go 106 in a World Series. So I mean, that is
Yeah,
I just think because that's the other thing too is like you just kind of obviously winning last year kind of takes in a way some pressure off. I think it also magnifies it in some way, but it just seems like maybe this is kind of what Plaschke was kind of referencing earlier, but in terms of kind of having that that fire, so to speak, is that everybody just kind of seems so much more comfortable. From Dave Roberts, when Ohtani kind of walked in, right, it just kind of felt different. He was greeting, he was saying hello to the reporters, which, I don't think he did as much last year, maybe before certain games because he was nervous.
He's had like conversations with us in English.
Yeah,
I was going to ask Dave before the game if he felt any pressure, but I didn't because he didn't act like he feels any pressure. Right. I think there's no pressure on this team at all.
The sense I get for it is the pressure that they had last year and the couple years before is that they hadn't lived up to expectations, right? And they still kind of had to prove that they were as good as they had been advertised as for the last decade. Now they know that, right? Now they know, like, even if things go wrong, we know we have the kind of talent, especially with Ohtani here, that can guide us through tough parts of the season, that can guide us through the postseason. And I think the pressure that's on them now is one that they're much more comfortable with, which is kind of instead of avoiding embarrassment, it's like living up to greatness, right? And when you have a team that has this many Hall of Famers in there, that has this many All-Stars in there, I think that's just a more comfortable place to be when you've already kind of proven we are the premier team in baseball. We're the most talented roster in baseball right now. And we're not even playing against the competition so much as we're playing against our historical legacy and trying to cement, this dynasty that they're not talking about openly, but I think has become a really kind of motivating thing in the clubhouse, at least to start the season.
Did you write 120 wins?
Yes.
Could you want to trash them if they don't get 120 wins?
Yes,
you
I would say something like that.
You said about to knock them down.
I would never do such a thing, Plaschke.
115 win losers that you're going to call.
We're pulling back the curtain here.
Yeah. I do think,
They only won the World Series in 5 games.
Damn them.
It reminds me of something
Underachievers.
Thierry Henry, the soccer player, kind of said, if you want to be a professional athlete, right, you have to kind of you have to love pain, right? And he was kind of talking about basically that you kind of have to get out there, right? You have to love training, right? Get kind of over the pain aspect of it. And I do think, like, with this team now having won, I do think they've kind of gotten used to that, like, again, taking every day, playing bringing that intensity every day. I think that's kind of become part of the DNA now. They're comfortable with it, right? It's not,
And they've seen the proof of it.
right, exactly, right, yeah. And they're past the point where they need, like even on last year, I don't really think like Dave really had to like remind them, right? Hey, we gotta bring it today. I know it's a Tuesday, whatever, in June. It didn't really feel like those reminders were even like necessary anymore. And this is really what when we talk about team culture, this is really what we're talking about here, right?
If you want to be an LA Times sports writer, you have to also love pain.
I was going to ask what it takes to be a professional columnist. Is like
Pain.
pain you got to live through.
You know what it is? What I always tell people is that we have to, our job is to subject ourselves to great humiliation. Because if you're going to have an opinion, you're going to miss sometimes.
Every day.
Well,
And like, look,
I'm sure
they could very well fall short of my expectations of them, and they could be 103 game losers like Plaschke thinks,
103 game winners.
and then I will feel stupid for having said that they should have won 120.
yeah, well,
Right.
I've called them the best team in baseball history like 4 straight years. So there's no bigger loser than me.
But that's the thing, right? But that's the thing, though. As a columnist, right, you don't let one humiliation stop from risking the
Every day.
Just keep dusting yourself off, and
I'm sure your column tomorrow will stir up none of these kinds of things. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. We're going to be doing this on a more and listening. Yes, we're going to be doing this on a more regular schedule this year, probably like a weekly schedule. So they got off days every Thursday this month. Seems like a good lineup for us. So yeah,
Do that come down to the field on the off day?
well, I think next time we're just going to go to center field.
Oh, dear God.
Well, and you're gonna have to like army crawl there for the added challenge.
well, if we do the on and off day, we'll just go to the office, right?
Sure, we do have a nice studio there.
I love the office.
After all this,
I love Dr. Pat. I love the office.
I love Dr. Pat. That's
I
true.
love the office.
Maybe it's just not just to let Dr. Pat go to the White House with them.
All right.
I-
I'm cutting the
let's
show
stop
off
right
here.
there.
That's it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you next week.